Hello and welcome to that 90s Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, James Sunstone. Today's special guest, what can I say, British wrestling royalty is the best way to explain it. List of accomplishments, he's a former Ring of Honor Pure Champion, IWGP Tag Champ, Noah Tag Team Champion, TNA X Division and Television Champion, the one and only Mr. Douglas Williams. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing very well, thanks, James. How are you doing? You okay?
Very good, thanks. We just had a quick chat off camera about lockdowns and things like that, but I can't be bothered talking about them anymore, so we'll talk about some good stuff and we'll talk about some wrestling.
What a great idea to me.
Cool. So, how's it over in Germany? All good?
Yeah, they've got restrictions here, as we do in the UK, and they seem to be a little bit more, I wouldn't say relaxed, but things just carry on as usual. Everything's closed.
Yeah.
Of course. No, it seems to be quite. Mind you, I'm in a tiny little village. My mum lives in a tiny little village, so it's very quiet anyway. Nice. Christmas. So.
Cool. Are you German on your mother's side, or did she move over there?
She moved over there. She's English. She's married to a German man.
I see. Yeah. Cool. So I suppose we'll go to the beginning. Before we get to the beginning, one thing I did want to mention, and it was something you've been bringing up on your social media lately, is raising awareness for mental health.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, we'll talk about lockdown quick, but obviously lockdowns affected people differently, and like people not being able to go to work and things like that. And I know one of your main passions in life is just going to the gym, and when lockdown was there and not being able to go to the gym, I would imagine that's something what frustrated you. So I always, me seeing you like raise awareness with mental health, I always thought was a good thing. So is that something you wanted to do, like raise awareness of it?
Yeah, very much so, because I think, especially during this period of time or this year, it's largely been overlooked as a really serious problem, and it's affecting so many more people than it had done previously. And I'm the first to admit that prior to this year, I maybe gave it, not such a serious thought about it. And now I've obviously experienced issues myself, and had real problems with my mental health this year. It's brought awareness to me, and I just want to bring it out to other people now and tell them to, if nothing else, just ask someone if they're okay, and check up on your mates and your friends, especially in times like now. It just needs a phone call or even a text message. It doesn't take much, but it's affecting so many people. I just don't think people understand or realise the severity of it, especially now.
Yeah, and I think like it doesn't really get brought up like it affects men, for example, because you both being English, like we've been raised up, take it on the chin, stiff upper lip, and all that. But you don't realize. I mean, this year, for example, like I'm a builder, so normally I'm outside working all the time, and for 3 months, like I was told to like sit in, and it just like proper wore me and that, and like it does affect you, like you don't realize how much it does, but yeah, but once you do get your little bit of freedom back and being able just to go outside, go to work and that, you realize how much you need it, and yeah, like for someone like yourself using the fame what you've got to help raise awareness, it's such a good thing, I believe.
A good point about being a man, and especially being English, and we're taught not to hide our emotions and not talk to people. But I just want to say that it should be the exact opposite. You need to talk to someone. Don't be afraid to hide your emotions, and just let people know how you're feeling, because people care and they do want to help you. They're not going to think less of you as a man because of it. I found that out, recently. I found that out.
Cool. So it's just a great thing to talk about. But we'll get to the beginning, I suppose. So your childhood, I would imagine you was a fan of wrestling growing up, or was it something you discovered a little bit later on?
Childhood, yes. I was a wrestling fan from the age of, I used to watch British wrestling when I was very young. I don't really remember much about that, but it was around the age of 13 or 14, we moved to Germany, and my parents got a Sky satellite dish, and they, catch some of the British channels, the Sky channel, and I started watching the old WWF on there, and that's what really got me interested in wrestling on that age, and I was just hooked. And then I came back to England when I was 15. Just started trading, collecting videotapes and magazines as much as I possibly could. I was obsessed with it by then.
Cool. And how long was it till you realised that's what you wanted to do as a profession for your life?
Well, almost straight away, really, from when I started watching it, and I came back to England. I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I had no clue whatsoever how possibly get into the business and what have you. So I just started doing judo again. I did judo before I went to Germany, but I came back, started getting into judo again, and just did that for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Because I figured, rightly so, back then that you needed some sort of training in martial arts, or because there was no amateur wrestling in England as such. Very, very few schools, especially around where I lived. So that's why I started judo instead, with a view to eventually being able to find out how to get into wrestling.
Cool. And you've done some of the old school British territories, I suppose you could say, and like NWA UK, FWA, and one of the earliest matches I noticed you wrestled was Eddie Guerrero, so who's one of the all-time legends of the business. So, what was it like being in the ring with Eddie Guerrero?
Well, I think it was kind of a wake-up call for me in that it demonstrated to me what you needed to be in order to be a world-class professional wrestler. Because before then, I obviously wrestled only guys in and around the UK, but this was the first kind of international star I'd wrestled. And he very much showed me, just by when I worked with him in the ring, what I needed to be in order to be world-class. And like a lot of people like that match, a lot of people talk about that match and say it's one of their favourites. But when I watch it, all I can see is him eating me up around me, basically. So I don't enjoy watching it that much, but I do appreciate that people like it.
And in 2002, I think it was, you eventually made your way to Ring of Honor. So it must have been quite a big leap, like moving to America. Well, going to America and wrestling in Ring of Honor. And some people during that time he was wrestling was the likes of Bryan Danielson, which everyone now knows him as Daniel Bryan, and Samoa Joe. What was it like joining Ring of Honor and wrestling these guys?
Well, I mean, obviously back then they weren't the names they are now. Everyone was just the same, level. It was interesting because Ring of Honor obviously had a lot of exposure and it had all this kind of hype and excitement. But to me, when I went there, it was kind of like it was just another wrestling promotion. They were just all wrestling promotion. They wrestled in a whole sports hall in Philadelphia in front of 500 people. So it was very interesting there. Their size did not match the extent and exposure that they got on a global scale. But like, we're all very young, we're all very enthusiastic guys. We all wanted to succeed, and that was something that really helped it. All the guys were young, and all enthusiastic, and they all had the same kind of passion and knowledge about professional wrestling. So we're all heading in the same direction, which was excellent.
Yeah, and also during the sort of time you was touring in Japan, going to Noah. So first of all, what's it like going over to Japan and actually wrestling over there? I can imagine it's just a big culture shock. Yeah,
it was a bit unfortunate in timing in that I hadn't been with Ring of Honor that long, less than a year, I think. And then obviously I got called for Japan, and I had to take, obviously Japan was such a huge deal that I kind of ended my consistent run with Ring of Honor, which was a shame. But yeah, Japan, I mean, that was when I started wrestling, really. I was never that interested in going to America or WWF or any of that. When I started seeing the tapes for all the Japanese wrestling, that was the place I wanted to go to, because I could see it probably fitted more my personality and my style, the sports orientated wrestling. A lot of British guys have gone over there and been quite successful as well. And the Japanese loved the British style. They would always send their young boys, their young trainees, to England first and then on to Canada to become more seasoned pros. So they all used to come through joint promotions, or All Star. So yeah, for me it was a great opportunity, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it going there, especially with the likes of Mizawa and Kobashi and people that I've countless tapes and many times.
Yeah, and you also won the tag team titles with Scorpio, who's a veteran of wrestling, and like vastly underrated, I believe. What was it like working with him?
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun with Scorpio. He always he just wanted to have a good time in the matches and entertain the crowds. And like you say, by the time I was with him, he was an old hand. He'd been in Japan years and years. Obviously, he trained in the New Japan Dojo originally. But he basically showed me the ropes. He helped me along in my first few tours. It was really thanks to him that I got on so well with the Japanese promotion and the other wrestlers.
Cool. And eventually you made your way back over to America and Ring of Honor, and you was put on the tournament for the pure title, defeating the likes of Jay Lethal, and eventually I think it was Alex Shelley defeated in the final. And
it was.
What was it like when coming back to Ring of Honor and them sticking the pure title on you, which that's just had a recent resurgence last couple of months with Jonathan Gresham winning the tournament. So, and I absolutely love the pure rules. They've got only 2 rope breaks and things like that. I think it's great. So, what was it like when they came to you and it's like, right, we're going to put the belt on you?
Well, again, you're thankful for the opportunity they give you, and they want to put this title on you, and then for you to carry that, the recognition and the prestige of that belt, and try and make it mean something. I agree with the rules thing. I like that. I enjoyed the challenge of trying to get the rules over with the fans, making them understand it, and then using it in the context of the story you're telling in the matches. So that was always a lot of fun. I'm really grateful for them for doing that, and I had some good matches. And
yeah, it was really good stuff. And eventually, you got.
I've seen a couple of them recently.
Yeah. Good. And eventually, you made your way to TNA, and this is the first, I suppose, time I noticed you watching TV, and you was in there for about a year or so before they started pairing you up with Magnus and Terry, which we'll get to. But what was it like? How did the TNA deal come about?
They contacted me because they were doing their first ever case. They wanted a UK guy on the phone. So they're obviously aware of me through other wrestlers working there. So yeah, I did that UK tour for them, which I think was June 2008, and they signed me off the back of that. Like you said, I was signed for roughly a year before they actually started using me, because I still had some Japan tours left on my contract, so I had to play those out first. And then I think it was in May 2009 that I got the call saying, "Oh, we're going to team you up with Nick and Rob and bring you in." And that was fine by me. I was just grateful to be given the opportunity to do something that was different to everything that I've done previously, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It was going to be more kind of shenanigans and theatrics and stuff that makes televised American wrestling different to everything else. That was going to be fun, an interesting challenge for me. Definitely.
And because I would personally say you was the most experienced out of the 3 of yous. Did they come with? Because I know I think Dixie was really behind Magnus, Nick Aldis. So was it the case that they wanted you to kind of mentor the 2 of them and show them the ropes and things like that?
Absolutely, that is absolutely what their game plan was. And they told me that as well, and that's fine. And I knew that I had to, in order for the team to be a success, I had to make sure that I was the one driving it and giving the instruction. And both of the guys, they learned a lot and picked up on it pretty quickly. And obviously Nick's gone on to do fantastic things subsequently. But yeah, I didn't mind being in that position. It's quite, the age I was and the experience I had, it was good to be able to pass that on, pass it down the line. Yeah.
I spoke to Nick about when they gave you the Union Jack tights and things like that, and he said, I felt it was a little bit on the nose, but when you realise your average American Joe, what we watching, we was great heel heat. And did it take you a little bit to realise that yourself, or was it something you was all for it straight away?
I gathered from the name that it was going to go all out with the Britishness of the gimmick, so to speak, and not to take any of it too seriously and just use it to maximum effect. So I didn't mind, I was sick of wearing black by then, anyways. Black trunks my whole career, so it's nice to get a bit of colour.
Yeah,
even if it was red, white, and blue. There we go.
And we spoke that year, 2009. TNA's tag division. It's one of the best tag divisions you could name at the time. It was yourselves, Beer Money, Motor City Machine Guns, Dudley's, Steiner and Booker T, Lethal and Creed. The talent was on the scale, but the one team I do want to speak about is Beer Money, who was one of the most over acts. What was it like working them series of matches with Storm and Rude?
Yeah, it was okay. They knew they were over, so it was very much their match, and we were just a heel foil for them, which that's fine. The point of wrestling in the match is to get the baby faces over, and make sure they sell the tickets to come and see them wrestle. Both guys were excellent workers, James and Bobby. It was always very easy in the ring, putting stuff together and wrestling with them. And yeah, it was good fun. And I think we wrestled them more than any other team, I think, because we did all the British tours, we always wrestled them, all the house shows, it was always us versus them. Just such a strong dynamic. They were hugely over baby faces and we were detested heels.
Yeah. And also the Dudley Boyz, Team 3D as they was called in TNA. I mean, one of the most legendary tag teams of all time, and he's defeated them for the IWGP titles. But what was it like working with the Dudleys as well, and also within the IWGP tag team titles? Must have felt like such a big accomplishment.
Yeah, I wasn't comfortable winning those belts because it wasn't something that was sanctioned by the New Japan office. I didn't want it to cause me issues with Noah either, but he didn't know at the end of it. But yeah, interesting working with the Dudleys in that they had a great understanding of tag team psychology. And again, you work with them and you work their match, but it always has a required result with the audience you're wrestling in front of. They're like chalk and cheese, really, Bubba and Devon, but we got on great with both of them. It was good fun.
Cool. And I think it was you won the TNA Tag Titles in the Full Metal Mayhem match, users was instant success really, because you was basically foreign heat, you could say, which is weird for me as a British guy saying that to a fellow British guy. But because you had the foreign heat over there, you was so over, and then they stuck the TNA Tag Titles on you, and great success straight away. So how did you feel having this big massive run with the tag belts?
It was fantastic. I mean, obviously it showed that whatever me and Nick and Rob were doing was working, as I say, it's always a privilege to be awarded a title, because then you know that the office sees something in you and they're relying on you to bring people into watching matches and be entertained. So it was nice. It was very nice.
Yeah, and during this run, you defended the titles against the Motor City Machine Guns and Beer Money again, and eventually lost them to Matt Morgan and Hernandez. But so during this time, I suppose I could say you worked all these great tag teams. Who would you say would be your favorite tag opponents during this time?
Machine Guns, definitely. I mean, I've known Chris and Alex for years and years, and I've worked with them in Ring of Honor, and they just, two great minds for tag wrestling. So dynamic, so fast, quick, and technically fantastic. So it was always great. I don't think we had a lot of matches against them, unfortunately, and I don't think we ever reached what I would say was our peak performance against them, unfortunately, because we just seem to be stuck. Nothing wrong with it, but we seem to be stuck in a never-ending feud with Beer Money most of the time. But, I've worked with them every day if I could.
Yeah,
they're fantastic.
Yeah. and they're still doing it today as well, putting on great matches. So they're doing really good, and it would have been around about this time as well that Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff came in. So you was there before and after, I suppose you could say. Was there, how much of a big difference was it when them two walked in, and what was your relationship with them personally?
I didn't have much relationship with Hogan. I didn't really speak to him that much.
No.
Not for any reason other than that he kept himself separated anyway, and he was kind of more interested, concentrating on what he was doing, and I was involved in the X Division that time, and Russo was still writing for that, so that was mainly not much involvement. Bischoff had more involvement with, because he would took a lot of interest in my promos and making sure that I was putting over whatever I needed to say. So he'd always run through those with me. So I'm thankful to him for that. That was always good. He always gave me good pointers. And yeah, like the first year they were there, 2010. I was X Division champion for all of that year. So didn't have much effect on my career in that particular moment. But then again, Terry Taylor and Jeff and Russo were all still there, and they were my three main people in the office who were behind me. So that first year, 2010, was fine. I think when those guys left and Bischoff and Hogan had a little bit more creative power and control of the booking, that is probably where I suffered really. So I don't think they saw that much in me, and I kind of lost any kind of what's the word, motivation, I suppose, to try and ingratiate myself with the new management, having done it once already. I was kind of tired anyway, so 2011 didn't work out quite so well for me, unfortunately. Yeah.
We'll get there. But you mentioned Vince Russo, and Vince Russo, the best way to describe him, I would say, would be like Marmite. You love him or you hate him. Now, I've spoken to him like online. We've gone back and forth. But possibly he might be coming to the show one day, and I treat people the way they treat me, and like the way he's treated me, he's been nice to me. And by the sounds of it, the way you've spoken to him, he was really good to you, especially with booking. What was your dealings with Vince Russo?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I might not agree with his philosophy on what wrestling should be and how it should be presented. However, he is the only person that's actually ever written anything for me that I was able to get, really put my teeth into and make a good story with. And he appreciated the fact that I took whatever he gave me and made it work. Obviously I became someone he really enjoyed writing for, which it was good. So I've got no problem with him whatsoever. And I knew what my job was, and his job was to write for me, and he did that, and I did my part, which was perform the stuff that he had written for me, best of my ability. So it was a shame really that he left, and that was kind of the end of my run, because I was seen as one of Russo's guys, I think, and that didn't help me with the next bunch of people that came in. Another good thing about him, I just want to say that he always wanted to try and get every single guy on the show, because he knew that a lot of us need for every TV appearance. So he always tried. People always say he did all this car crash TV and have 100 different segments going on. He just wanted to get everyone on there. He just wanted to get everybody on TV and get them paid, which I was thought was quite an admirable trait of his.
Yeah, I think like every writer, he's had good ideas and he's had bad ideas, like everyone. But I think if you could find someone, because the thing with Russo, and he said this himself, he's not really interested in the match. He's interested in the story that goes into it. I personally think if you could find the right person to complement that, who's focusing on the matches and incorporating his ideas, I think, it wouldn't be a bad, creative team, but we'll have to see. But you mentioned, sorry.
I think that's what he and Jeff worked so well, though, because they complement each other in that way, and I think Jeff kind of curtailed more of some of Russo's crazy ideas, maybe. But for a short time when they were booking, and when I was there for a short time they were booking, it did work.
Cup. And you mentioned winning the X Division title. You cashed in Big Rob's X Division Feast and Fire briefcase on an Amazing Red to be the X Division title, which was great. But before we get to your run there, Rob Terry, obviously they ended up giving him this big, massive Goldberg push, you could say, with the global title. And it seemed to be going well, but all of a sudden it got to a screaming halt. So why do you believe Rob Terry didn't end up going bigger than what he did? Like, his push just all of a sudden got stopped.
I don't know, really. I just think that he got to a certain point and he just stopped developing as a wrestler, really. And I think that he found it very difficult to put himself over, as he looked massive and impressive, but to try and project that in the ring as well is a difficult thing to do. And I just think, he just reached a certain level and wasn't going to develop any further. And maybe they saw that too, you know. So yeah, I don't really know the behind the scenes and mechanics of why they would have stopped it, but I'm just speculating. But that could be it.
Yeah, and the thing I loved about your title run with the X Division, so obviously, you know, the X Division was like no limits, and obviously there was a lot of high flying. And I loved your style, your title reign, because it was catch as can style, and it was getting everything grounded and focusing on the actual mat work, things like that. And obviously, we've seen that before during your stints with Ring of Honor and Nowhere. So, what was it like being given like the push that right? We're gonna put the X Division to your style.
I think that was the whole gimmick, wasn't it? I mean, that's what Russo had planned, was that I'd be the nemesis, the antithesis of all that style of wrestling, and just ground them all. And it was, I mean, I people can high fly if they want, they can do anything they like. You know, I enjoy watching that, and I enjoy wrestling the high flyers, and you know, I think they complement what I do perfectly. But I did have great fun, you know, with the promos and the little things I put in the match to demonstrate how much I hated that style. So it was, you know, it was a lot of good fun. And I say it was something I could really get my teeth into as well, you know, and come up with good ideas and what have you. So that's why I enjoyed it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Yeah. And
during this time as well, you used to defend the titles against Kazarian, who's very Flair, and Brian Kendrick. So what was like working these type of guys style? I would imagine you probably wrestled a couple of these guys in ROH beforehand.
Yeah, I've known them. All these guys I've known for years and years and years. So it was really easy working with them. You know, they knew me and I knew them. So it was never a problem. It was never. I know Brian Kendrick since Frankie too, actually, both from 2001. So I've known him 10 years by that point.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Cool. And during this time as well, you got given like a new contract, and I think that was when you kind of moved full time to America, and it looked like things was going to last for a long time. And I suppose it was Dixie that sorted it out with you. What was Dixie Carter like to work with, and personal level?
I mean, she was always polite enough to me. I didn't have huge amounts of dealings with her because I tend to deal with talent relations and you know, or Russo. But every time, you know, if I had an issue about something, I'd speak to her, and it would generally get sorted. I don't know. She obviously had her favourite wrestlers, and you could see those are the ones who were getting the push a lot of times. But I don't really have anything bad to say about her. My opportunities, and she paid my wages, and that was the main thing.
Right. And one of the biggest highlights, I suppose, was getting put into Fortune, and you're tagging along with AJ, Kazarian, Beer Money, Daniels, and stuff, and also like being on screen with Ric Flair all the time. So, what was it like being part of this group and like being able to work weekly, I suppose, with the man himself, Ric Flair?
Yeah, that was interesting. Obviously, yeah, I felt a bit weird about the Fortune thing because I thought the four of them worked pretty well. Right. So me and Morgan were kind of like, this is a bit weird being stuck on the side there. But what I did enjoy was my face turn, and then when I turned on the guys, obviously leading to my match with AJ, and it was and that was good. Again, something different from what I'd been doing before.
Yeah, and mentioned the face turn, and it led towards the TV title, the match with AJ.
Yeah.
So AJ, one of the greatest of all time, like we said, and like TNA, like once he left, that was pretty much the end of TNA, pretty much. But what was it like working these great series of matches with AJ? Like just wrestling time draws, and these matches must have been great.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I think from both our points of view, we never actually worked singles matches before. We'd done like a three-way and a couple of things in England, but never worked a singles match with each other. So we were quite excited about that prospect of doing that. So obviously we put everything into it, and it was yeah, we had some great matches. Obviously with AJ, it's easy. You're always going to have a great match with him.
Yeah. And one of the things you mentioned, England, you wrestled Ric Flair in Wembley. So what was that like? Taking that off the bucket list.
I know, right? Yeah. There's a little known fact about that match is that unfortunately I had a terrible toothache. It bugged me the whole tour. So I'd had to take painkillers, and so I wouldn't say I was a little bit subdued going into that match just because of the pain of the toothache and everything. Having said that, wrestling at Wembley Arena in front of 11,000 people against an all-time legend was one of the highlights of my career, without a doubt. Unfortunately, he got injured in the match and we had to cut it short, but that's okay. Still fun. And like you say, it's a bucket list thing, isn't it? Ticked it off.
Oh yeah. I mean, how many people could say they wrestled Ric Flair? Like, especially with English lads, like wrestling in England, it's you're a select few basically who's been able to do that. So I can only imagine. But like you mentioned, like you enjoy turn and face. So like it's a weird question to ask, but how do you prefer working? Do you prefer being babyface or heel?
I prefer being heel, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it's easier for me to get over a babyface, than working. But it pretty much became an impossibility when I came back to England to be a heel.
Yeah.
So yeah, the last few years I've been almost exclusively babyface when I've worked. Yeah.
That was the thing when I spoke to Nick. I said, even though obviously the British invasion is supposed to be heels, I'm biased. I always cheer on my UK guys because, like, we'll get to it later with you. Like, before yourself, really, there was only, Bulldog and Regal, really, and Dynamite. And to me, like with you, you kind of like opened the eyes for a lot of young British wrestlers, like telling them like you can go over to abroad and be a success, and if it's not America, you can work all across Europe and work in Japan. And like to me, you opened the floodgates for a lot of the British talent we're seeing today. So how does it feel for yourself? Like I don't know if you credit yourself that much, but that's how I would actually credit you.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I credit myself as much as you might with that, but yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Certainly, it's shown people that there is opportunity outside of your own country. And I have to say, it's far easier now anyway. There's so many more opportunities and places, that have opened. Because I think what I did do is kind of open people's eyes to what British wrestling is still around, and it's still, a world. It's still up there with Japan, Mexico, and all the other countries that are traditionally associated with wrestling. And I think people thought that British wrestling had almost died off. I'm talking on a global scale. And I think I opened a lot of people's eyes up to the fact that no, British wrestling is still alive, and there is still people who can do it and are good at it. And it turned a lot more eyes onto Great Britain and onto the shows, the local shows that we had in this country. So yeah, I credit myself more with that than opening the floodgates. Because that's happened in the last few years. But maybe I just laid the path for a lot of those guys to get started. Who are now, successful.
And the one guy I do want to talk about, I don't know if, as far as I can remember, I don't know if you had any matches with him. You might have done that; it's slipped my mind. But Kurt Angle, was you around him much? And did you wrestle him? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wrestled him once on TV. We did a 5-minute match, and it was fantastic. And again, it's just there's guys that people say are great wrestlers, and until you wrestle them, you don't really know if they are or not. Because we look at it, we see it from a different viewpoint from maybe the fans do, and he's one of those that are definitely deserved of that type of being one of the best wrestlers. And it's just a shame that we never got to do something longer on pay-per-view or something. Because apparently this was great. It just went by in a flash.
Yeah, it would have been great. And eventually your run with the TV title ended, and a few months went by, but eventually they paired you and Nick back together, British Invasion 2.0, I suppose you could say. So what was it like being paired back up with Nick?
I don't remember much about it, to be honest with you, but I think they were just trying to find something for both of us to do, and that they just decided they'd come back around to doing that. And then, I don't know, they wanted to pair Nick up with Nigel.
That's right.
Broke us up. But, I don't really remember because it was very, very short. It was over very quickly, wasn't it? So, I don't know if Nick remembered much more about it than I do, but I don't know if you asked him that same question. But
well, you made your way to OVW, and during that time, they had the relationship with Impact, being the developmental brand, I suppose you could say. But I've heard you say in previous interviews that Impact didn't take it too serious as much as they should, because while they was just focusing on their own show, they wasn't focusing on the newer group of youngsters who was coming through. And was that how it was during your time in OVW?
Yeah, I think it was just kind of somewhere to stick some of their younger guys because they didn't have anything for them to do, so they just wasn't there. I don't know how serious they took it or what their intention was behind it, but it just seemed like they had a group of guys that didn't know girls that didn't know what to do with, so they just put them down there until time as their contracts ran out or they actually had a spot for them. And I'm trying to think of anyone who did get brought back up, and I can't really think off the top of my head. Spud might be the only one that went direct. Spud was different though in that he went directly to OVW until they found something for him, and then they brought him up to TV. So that was good for him, actually. I think very good for him.
And it was around about this time in 2013 that Nick Aldis became TNA champion. So what was it like seeing your good friend become the champion?
Yeah, I was pleased for him. I was obviously out of TNA by then. I was back home, but no, it was kind of something that they had been leading to for a while. I don't know. It was saying, obviously, I was happy for him that he was champion. Maybe it was a little too soon for him, and I don't know. I think speaking to him, he had a lot of politics working against him as well when he was put in that position. So I think he learned a lot how to manage the other forces that work against you when you're put in that position. So that's helped him probably now, where he's in a position and he's the NWA champion, that he's doing a fantastic job with that belt.
But when I spoke to him, he told me circumstance becoming champion there, and he basically admitted himself in the interview, he knew that it wasn't as successful as what he even wanted to be, and same what you just said, there was some things working against him and that, and it could have been better, but at least he got the run with the belt, I suppose. But you made your way back into the UK, and the biggest thing with the UK, them years, just a big explosion, of British talent being recognised worldwide. So what was it like coming back to the UK and working the same?
Yeah, because when I left in 2010. It was pretty, pretty dead. The shows had kind of tailed off a lot and weren't drawing great. When I came back in 2013, it was like a totally different animal. There's all this fantastic talent around. There were shows, new young promoters that were utilising social media and more modern ways of promoting, and drawing in great houses. It was a little bit of a shock. I mean, I've done a few tours whilst I was exiting champion over here, but it was still in the same kind of situation. But 2013, when I turned back, changed totally. It was a good thing to see, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And one of the UK guys who we're all proud of, Drew McIntyre, or Drew Galloway, as we all call him as well. Obviously, he's WWE champion. He's big success since then. So, what's it like working with him? I can imagine, on a personal level, he's one of the nicest guys about.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I've known Drew for a long, long time, and he's fantastic attitude. He's great in the ring. He's huge. So, he's I'd had fun working with him. We've wrestled a few times when he was over here between WWE runs. Just a great guy all round. Can't say a bad word about him, actually. Nothing bad. And he stayed at my house a few times as well. So
Cool. And another guy who went to America, went to WWE NXT, and unfortunately injuries happened and he made his return. Joe Redman. Had the pleasure of interviewing him a few months ago, and he mentioned it was an honor for himself to wrestle one of your last matches. What was he like to work with?
Yeah, fantastic. He's again a great-looking guy. He's in great shape. He had the grounding of that training over at FCW when he was there in Florida. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I must have wrestled him 100 times in the last 5 years, I think. Yeah. But yeah, just again. A seasoned pro, very good worker.
Cool. And I've got a couple of questions from the fans. So one of them asked, obviously, you've done the camps and things like that. So what's your craziest story like working on the camps?
My craziest story working on the camps?
Yeah.
I've got any crazy stories from the camps, actually, because what I managed to avoid doing those long runs of 6 weeks in a row. Now I'd only go in for a week and then pop out again because I had other commitments. God, I can't. Crazy stories from the camps, eh? I don't know. No. Sorry, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. It's just.
No problem.
It's a blank. I've got a brain freeze on that at the moment.
No worries. And you retired. I think it was this past year. So, what finally made you decide to hang up the boots?
2018. So it's 2 years ago now. Gone quick.
Right, yeah.
But one thing was injuries. I had a neck injury that I needed to get resolved. But also, it was just like I didn't really think there wasn't really much else for me to do in my career. And it was fantastic talent coming up anyway. I just thought it was probably the right time to knock it on the head. And I've done a few things since, and I was scheduled to be Ring of Honor this year. So I'll do a few foreign stuff, but yeah, I'm finished in the UK. I won't work there again, wrestle there again. Just I don't, say I don't nothing else for me to do really. Yeah.
Yep. And because your style of wrestling is a style we appreciate. What's your I was asked this as well. What was your thoughts on today's style of wrestling? And because some of the wrestling I enjoy, I love NWA full stop. But when I see, for example, AEW, I'm not a fan of all the I like dive sport. I think Jim Cornette mentioned this, and Jim Ross. When you see 10 or 12 people outside the ring getting ready for someone to jump onto them, obviously I know wrestling's predetermined in that, but it feels so predetermined. And when you compared to that, say NXT, now NXT is kind of good as well, but the only problem I find with NXT, everyone looks the same, and they seem to be going for that world of sport, black trunks, no knee pads, and there doesn't seem to be any characters. And when I mentioned previous that the British Invasion, you stood out because the big Union Jack tights, so you stood out straight away. And with TNA itself, they have so many different characters. Is that something that's missing in today's wrestling, having specific characters you can point out and see, and also the in-ring style?
Yeah, going back to reasons why I retired, I think another reason I retired is that I've seen how wrestling had changed, and it wasn't really, it didn't really fit with what I would think wrestling should be necessarily. At the end of the day, you're supposed to be in a portraying, or you're supposed to be in a sporting contest trying to beat the other guy. Nowadays, that illusion of it looking that way has largely been lost. It is a lot more. It just looks a lot more dance-like to me, if you want, or gymnastic in its approach. And coupled with that, really, they've kind of lost the art of psychology, and and making people believe for a moment, or in what they're watching, and the scenario with the diving and diving onto groups of people is one of those bits where it so blatantly takes you out of what you're watching. I don't really like watching that sort of thing at all. But yeah, characters as well. I mean, the one thing I do appreciate about AEW is they do have quite a diversity of characters. I like watching that because it's different in that respect. I don't watch NXT because I don't have the time. I don't have the network either. You definitely need some colour, and you definitely need characters. Because when I was a kid, that's what attracted me to watching it. When I was 13 and 14, it was it was just the hype of it all, and the life characters, and more so than the wrestling, even. Although over time, you obviously could appreciate who are better wrestlers and who are not. So you just need a good mix, really, of large and life characters doing wrestling as I know it to be. Which I kind of pick the same mold as Jim Ross and Jim Cornette's ideology in that respect. Yeah.
And we it's kind of going full circle. So you wrestled like NWA UK branch and NWA Power. Unfortunately, COVID put a stop to NWA Power. But what was your thoughts on NWA? Was it something that was right up your street?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was an easy hour of TV to watch. And again, they had definitive characters. Everyone was different. And the matches, they kept them short, but also, they didn't go overboard with stuff. You believed. It looked like they were trying to fight each other.
That's right.
So yeah, no, I loved it. And like you say, yeah, it's a shame. It got curtailed so quickly, but they were building something good there.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be returning. And one of the questions I was asked, so there's a podcast, the NWA podcast, 3 guys, Rob, Will, and Gary. So when I told them, in fact, you're coming on the show, they went, right, James, you need to ask them for us. So Nick Aldis and Tom Latmere and Camille, they've got the group Strictly Business. Now, Royce Isaacs left, and so it's the 3 of them. And we took a poll. Who would you like to be a member of Strictly Business? And your name was at the top of the list.
I wasn't. Okay. You never know, do you?
Now, you said you're retired, but now, say the day comes, Power's up and running again, Nick Aldis makes the call, do you want to join Strictly Business? What would your answer be?
That would absolutely be a definite yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
They'll be happy. I'm definitely going to mention to them that you've said that, so they'll be really happy to say that. And it would be perfect. It'd be like, for me, especially British guy, it's a British Invasion reunion, but also with one of my favourites, Tom Latmere. So hopefully that'll be something that'll be happening. Yeah. So last 2 questions, Doug, before we let you go. So you've been on the road for many years. What's the best rib you've seen?
Well, yeah, I've got that one. That's an easy one. We were on a tour of Japan with Davey Richards was on the tour, and he left his hotel room once and he dropped his hotel room key on the floor. Yeah. So one of us, I won't mention the other names of the people in the group, swiped up his key and we let ourselves into his room. And then what we did is we basically emptied the entire contents of his room into the bathroom. So all that was left was just an empty room. We put everything in there, desk, chair. We put the base of the bed in the bathroom, but we couldn't get the mattress in, so we just propped up against the window. Then we shut the door and went away. And Davey Richards came back to an empty room. And he ended up ringing one of the guys and said, "Hey guys, I think someone's been in a room and stolen everything." We didn't even think to check in the bathroom and see where it all was. But it didn't take us long. Japanese hotel rooms are small, but it was quite a fun one and reasonably harmless as well. There was no damage done.
And this show isn't PG, and you was in TNA for a while. What was your favourite story while you was in TNA, like your backstage story?
Oh, I don't know really. Backstage story. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot going on, but I mean, you've seen me dropped on my head by Hernandez, have you? You seen that clip? Yeah, you've seen. Well, the aftermath of that was I was absolutely mad, so I stormed to the back, and they physically wouldn't let me go out of the gorilla position. They made me sit down and take all these tests from the trainer. You know, he checked my eyes and everything and that. And I later realised it was probably so they didn't want me to go causing trouble with Hernandez. So
Yeah,
I was just saying they'd done all the checks on me and had me sitting there for ages. He left, so I wasn't able to go after him and have a quiet word. Yeah, that was a shame, but you know, these things happen, don't they? You know. That's interesting.
Go. So before, sorry.
You heard all that, did you? You got all that?
Yeah, that's got it. Cool. So thanks for that, Doug. Before we leave, do you want to tell people where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, well, I'm on Twitter at Doug Williams UK, and then on Instagram at Doug Williams GB. Then I don't tweet that much anymore. I kind of fell out of love with Twitter in sort of June of this year, but I am still on there, so you can follow me if you wish. But Instagram, I'm more active on. I put up stories and post pictures, and usually pictures of my wrestling career, stories about what I'm doing at the moment, you know, day to day things, you know, mundane life. But you know, if you're interested in seeing what I do post career, then that's where to go. Okay. I don't have Facebook. I don't have Facebook for fan consumption. I have my own personal one, so
yeah,
we won't be that.
Cool. Well, Doug, it's been absolutely a pleasure to speak to you. One of my targets, like, started this podcast a few months ago. I'm like, right, I need to get my British guys on, and I've had the pleasure of having Nick Aldis on, Joe Redman. I think Tom Latmere is going to come on eventually. And the fact that I've got yourself, you was one of the guys I wanted on the most, because you've had such a great story at wrestling everywhere. And like I said, me, personal opinion, you're one of the main guys who's opened the floodgates for British talent to make their way over. So, absolute pleasure having you on the show. Just had such a great time.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks very much. And and hopefully we can do this again one day.
Chapters to talk about. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. Once COVID's finished, you might come back.
Cool. Right. Thanks very much, Doug. And hopefully, like I said, do it again.
All right. Thank you, James. Cheers.